By the power of Grayskull, I have the power. He-Man, I'll be back again. Just saw the Motu movie, y'all, and it was mostly awesome. It was really good, but I want to be able to sit here and give you an honest thought process of a young boy who grew up in the 1980s, who've been waiting for this movie his entire life, and who lived through the original 1987 movie, but was kind of too young to grasp that movie because that movie was kind of too adult for a 10-year-old. And I'm sitting here thinking, is the current movie too adult for a 10-year-old? And if I have to be honest, I would say the answer is yes. As fun as this movie was, I don't think it was geared toward children very well. It just wasn't. There were too many jokes in this movie that just were way too adult orientated. When you start driving jokes home and there are a half a dozen jokes in a movie that are talking about another man's junk, then that is a problem if you want to attract another generation to your movie. Whatever children talk about behind the scenes is one thing, but for an adult producer to put that on a big screen and turn that into comedy to try to attract, a next generation to a franchise, it's going to fall flat. It's going to fall flat with parents, and it's going to fall flat with the kids it's supposed to reach out to. And listen, Masters of the Universe is a really good movie. I have not been to the movies, and probably maybe I've only been to like 2 movies in 5 years. Super Mario Brothers and now Masters of the Universe. And I really wanted to support this because growing up in the 80s, you really want to see some of those toy properties come to movies on the big screen. And Masters of the Universe was one, and so was Voltron. So to finally see Masters of the Universe on the big screen was a dream come true. And I realized also that when they were making Masters of the Universe, they were making it toward that kid who grew up in 1983. And in Christmas in 1983, 1984, he woke up and found these 2 guys underneath the Christmas tree, wrapped up in a present. And when he unwrapped that present and got He-Man for the first time with his accessories, and he got Skeletor to fight against He-Man for the first time with his accessories, the mind and the imagination went to places that you can't imagine. There was no cell phone. Super Nintendo had came out. That was Mario Brothers. And it was in the very beginning, 16-bit video games. And that was breathtaking. And we played Super Mario Brothers until the sun came back up and the sun went back down. We played it all night during the weekends. And we had these toys. We had He-Man. We had G.I. Joe. We had Transformers. And to finally see this property done correctly was a dream come true. And I don't think any Masters of the Universe fan is going to dispute that. I think by and large, for the most part, there's always going to be exceptions. Most people right now are ecstatic and excited that we finally got a Masters of the Universe movie and the property was done right. The characters look like they were supposed to look. He-Man, they did a great job. He looked like He-Man. He wasn't as buff and built as Dolph Lundgren. Oh yeah, and to have Dolph Lundgren pop up as a cameo and pass the torch down to the new actor, and forgive me, I can't think of his name. He's new to my I'm just becoming familiar with this actor. He did a good job. And I know there's a lot of complaints, and when I first saw the trailer, I initially thought it was going to be a completely woke movie because they showed on the desk where Prince Adam was, Adam Glenn was his name. And then I wondered, where did they get the name Glenn from? Because we know Prince Adam in the movie, he goes to Earth and whatever time period it is, I'm assuming because they have technology when he gets there. So I don't know what year it's supposed to take place in, but somehow or another, he winds up with the last name Glenn. I'm guessing they'll explain that later. And if they do have a part 2, maybe we'll get the history of that. We know how Superman got the name Clark Kent, but we don't know how Adam gets Adam Glenn in this He-Man movie. And yeah, this movie was mostly awesome, y'all. If you haven't watched it, you should go watch it. So the whole beginning opening scene where he's telling the story while he's on a date, I thought that was a great way to introduce his backstory and how to tell it, within the first 15, 20 minutes of the movie. I thought it was phenomenal. I thought it was great. And it pans into he's having a date and the lady thinks he's completely off his rocker. And that was great. I had no problem with that. And just to see Eternia was amazing. To see flying creatures and Eternia and Castle Grayskull and the monorail and all that stuff, man, there was a lot of Easter eggs in here. It was really, really good. I just sit here as I'm watching the movie. I was glad that it wasn't overly woke. It wasn't. Can people argue that there was some woke aspects to it? Sure, you can. But I think it was fine. I think the movie was great. Considering some of the movies that we recently got, Masters of the Universe is a good movie, and I highly recommend anyone who hasn't seen it to go see it, even if you don't see it this weekend and you only have an opportunity next weekend, go see it. But I wanted to give my honest analysis as a kid who grew up with this property. I'm a 1980s kid. I grew up in the 80s. I had 80s toys. Whatever my parents could afford. My parents couldn't afford to just bombard me with toys. But I did have He-Man. I had Castle Grayskull. I didn't have all the other stuff, but I had a handful of characters, and I enjoyed playing with them. And I could have, as a kid, to have seen this movie would have been amazing. But here I am in my 40s, and I finally got to see the movie, and I had a good time. And me and my wife went. And when we went in the movie theaters, we went to the preview night. And when we went in, I thought there was at least going to be probably 30 or 40 people in the movie theater with us. They only had about 8 of us in the entire movie theater. For some reason or another, I think the biggest issue that Masters of the Universe had leading up to this movie, which is a good movie, is that the marketing wasn't that great. I'm hearing behind the scenes, there was issues with Jared Leto, and the producers did not want to bring Jared Leto to the forefront to help promote this movie, and Jared Leto is now disgruntled. And one of the best parts of the movie is Jared Leto. Skeletor is one of the best parts of this movie, hands down. My wife, who went to watch it, when we were talking about it and kind of dissecting it at the end when we walked out, she admitted that, Skeletor was one of the best parts. She enjoyed Skeletor too. And the other characters, Trapjaw. Trapjaw was on the money. And my 2 favorite characters growing up, 2 of my favorite characters was Trapjaw and Webstore, because Trapjaw and Webstore had a lot of playability. And as a kid, I could take Webstore, man, with that grappling hook and make him kind of just like a spider shoot across the room. And then Trapjaw changing each one of his arms out with a different arm was an amazing thing as a kid to see his fight scenes in the movie. The fight scenes in the movie were really, really good. And Skeletor had just enough balance of that old school humor and that silly, awkward humor to go with the seriousness. You never thought that Skeletor wasn't capable of destroying everything in his sight. You knew he was capable of destroying everything, and you did not want to mess with him. He was powerful and bad. He backed up what he said, and most of what he said was silly. But that's a play on the 80s cartoon, and so you should enjoy it. Now, do I think they overdid it? Yes, and I think that's the common consensus across the board, is everybody saying that they overdid it. Even though Skeletor stole the show, they still could have scaled back a little bit and gave us a little more seriousness because they're trying to build a universe. Listen, this might be unpopular, but I remember seeing the first Iron Man, and I did not like the first Iron Man. Personally, for me, it was just meh, because they were introducing his story. It wasn't until we got established Iron Man that they started getting into straight up Iron Man fights in the MCU. Of course, now the MCU mostly sucks. But back then, in its infancy, to watch it unfold was an awesome thing. It's just a lot of these properties become crap because the people who are running them, they don't care about putting out a good finished product. They care about pushing their agenda and a message to try to indoctrinate. That's just, hey, look, it is what it is. That's why a lot of people don't go see movies no more. Ticket sales are down. And the ticket sales that are up are from movies that aren't connected to properties. Like even Star Wars. Star Wars is a huge property. You can argue that Star Wars is probably the biggest property on planet Earth. And right now it's failing because people don't want to be preached to when they go see a movie. And look, I'm predicting right now, you want to talk about being preached to? When Mel Gibson drops The Passion of the Christ's Resurrection, I'm predicting that that movie is going to break the other record that Mel Gibson had with The Passion of the Christ. The world is in prime. The world is ready for something different. They're tired of the last decade and a half of being preached to about how we should live, how we should think, what we should do, and it's constant regurgitation. And that's what ruins movies. That's why I believe, how I'm connecting this to Masters of the Universe, why a lot of people did not go watch Masters of the Universe. They were shell-shocked. They had been burned one too many times from the movie theater. That's why I don't go to the movies that much no more. That's why me and my wife quit going. And early on in my marriage, all we did was go to the movies. I had ticket stubs everywhere from the last 20-something years of movies that me and my wife went to. But we just quit going. We lost interest. It quit being fun. You know, we just wanted to get away from everything. We wanted to get away from politics when we went seeing a movie. But we walked into movies where it was supposed to be fun and it became political. We didn't want to hear the garbage. We had enough of that on the local news stations. We didn't want to hear it when we went to a Saturday night movie with a bucket of popcorn. We just didn't want to. And that's what it became to. Telling me how bad I am, telling us what we should do is just ridiculous, man. But this movie is fun. This movie is enjoyable, man. I had so much fun with this movie. And I hope you go see it if you haven't seen it, because the end of the movie was really, really good. And I think there's potential to build upon a really nice universe for Masters of the Universe. But if we don't watch this movie and they don't make their money back, I think Amazon did it. Amazon is the one who produced this and backed it up. Amazon is going to be, they're going to be kind of shy. They're going to be gun shy to go to produce the next movie. And it may not even go to the movie theater. They may do something years and years later and just put it on Amazon Prime. And we would like to see it in the movie theater. I would like this to become a big thing. But anyway, as for now, I just want to be appreciative. I got to see a lot of awesome characters. I'm holding two of my characters. These are the 1980s, 84 He-Man and Skeletor figures I have. I collect action figures. And I got to see a lot of awesome characters. Ram Man, Fisto, Trapjaw, Triclops, Beastman. Beastman, to me, Beastman was really awesome. Would I have liked to see Beastman use his mental telepathy to control animals on Earth? Man, if they would have did that, that would have been amazing. But I understood it was a 2-hour movie. There's only so much time, and there was a lot of characters. I wish we would have saw more of Spike, or we would have saw more of Moss Man. And by the way, y'all, did y'all see what Skeletor done Moss Man? Psh, he just annihilated Moss Man. But remember one thing, y'all, it was Moss Man, and Moss Man's kind of like Swamp Thing. He can grow back. So Moss Man can come back. That ain't the end of Moss Man. But if the movie doesn't sell enough tickets, we won't get to see what happens with Hordak and She-Ra. And that's a whole nother thing, because I was thinking to myself, is Masters of the Universe and Mattel have the IP licensing for She-Ra just like they do for Masters of the Universe? So I believe that they don't. And if you look deeper into it, they had to do a lot of maneuvering just to get She-Ra to pop up at the end so that they could build another universe. But it's not going to come to fruition if we don't go see the movie. So my recommendation is go check out Masters of the Universe. And thanks for watching Gregory's Thoughts Proceed. We're getting this thing cracked back started, and hopefully I'll start dropping a lot more videos, man. Thanks. Peace.